How to place a damper accessory inside PractiCAD duct. There are actually a multitude of ways of placing dampers inside the PractiCAD fittings. In this tutorial, we're going to show you the most preferred way, which is actually using the accessory icon dampers. We're also going to have tutorials on the other methods after this one. What we're going to do here is we're going to choose the damper icon. It is in the accessory panel on your PractiCAD ribbon. We're going to click on it. Once you do that, PractiCAD is going to say to please select a fitting. We're going to click on the fitting here, and once we do that, PractiCAD is going to open up the damper parameter or field box. This parameter box, like all in the software, can be adjusted by holding your cursor on the edges to make it larger or also on the corners. Once you've set it to the proper size, you must also put it at the proper position on your drawing, and then you can leave it there. PractiCAD will retain both the position and size of this window once you exit out. What we're going to do here is we're going to say we'd like to place a damper from the in joint. Notice we have the in and out. We're using a rectangular duct. It only has an in joint and an out joint. If we were using a fitting that had an in, an out 1, and an out 2, like a square T, you would see them all listed here. There are also fittings that have in, out, and body, body being the center of the fitting. What we're going to do is say we'd like to place a damper from the in joint. We're going to click on this little down arrow key, and we're going to get a list of dampers that are available to us. Remember, the choices here are going to be different than the ones on your system. They do vary from user to user, and there are separate tutorials that teach you how to build any custom damper you would like. Here what we're going to do is we're just going to select the VD damper. Once we pick it, it's already going to be on the drawing, and we're visually going to be able to see the position it's at that we have listed right here under the inset and outset. And as we move the inset and outset, we're going to be able to visually see that damper rod move up and down this fitting. Now, inset, if set to 0, means that the center of the rod is actually lined up with the in joint. If we were doing it from the out, it would mean it lined up from the out joint. But we're on the in joint. We have inset 0, so the center of the rod is right there. If we go and change the inset to 12 by keypadding in 12, the center of the rod will be 12 inches from the in joint. And that property is reportable. Now what we need to do is choose the orientation. We have top, bottom, near, and far because we're using rectangular duct. And we can use these parameters to control how the damper is oriented inside the fitting. Here you can see that it's currently oriented under near. I'm going to switch it to top. Notice that that's going to move the rod up and down in this particular case. The most important thing to use the orientation for is actually to control the side of duct that the handle is on. And in the tutorials on creating dampers, they explain how to create default settings for these handles, but you can always switch it to another side. For example, here we have it orientation near, and we can see that the VD or the damper handle happens to be on the right. If we'd like to switch it, just roll the wheel mouse to far, it'll jump to the far side, and now we would have it on the left. So we can control that from here. If we'd like to add a damper from the out, just click on the out section. You're going to see the drop down menu. Choose the damper you'd like. Here we're going to choose the FSD, and then just simply roll it into the position from the out joint. Once you have all the dampers selected, all you need to do is press OK, and you have successfully placed the damper inside the fitting. The second way to place a damper in the fitting is to do it from the item or fitting box as you're inputting. What we're going to do here is we're going to delete this fitting off the drawing. We're going to grab another piece of rectangular duct from our bin, and then we're going to go into the item box. And notice right here that we've got the fitting tab depressed automatically, and now we're going to scroll down and notice that in the list of choices we have here damper in and damper out. Damper in means we'd like to place a damper from the in joint. Damper out means we'd like to place a damper from the out joint. If we click on damper in, you're going to notice that a little dialog box is going to appear. And if we click on that dialog box, PractiCAD is going to open up a little window. And in this window, it's going to allow us to choose the damper type we want. In this particular case, we're going to say choose the VD damper. And remember, the choices there are going to be controlled by your data underneath your library. There are separate tutorials on creating dampers. Then what we're going to do is we're going to choose an orientation. We can choose whether we want this oriented on the near, top, bottom, and far. Now, one of the disadvantages of utilizing dampers here is that you actually cannot see what side that handle's on until you place this on the drawing. we cannot actually see the damper appear inside the fitting until we've pressed the OK button and placed this fitting down. So that's why the first method we show in the other tutorial, using the damper icon, is preferred. But you can do it from here on input. So what we're going to do is going to say use the orientation near. And then we need to choose the offset. If I would like the center of this damper blade to be 12 inches from the in joint, because we're using the damper in, I would set this to 12. Now we're going to press OK. Once we've done that, we've now got a fitting. And once we place it on the drawing, that fitting will come with the damper blade inside. In this particular case, it just happens to be a rod. So this is another method. If you use this method, keep in mind that after you've placed it, if you'd like to adjust it, you can go right into the damper icon on your accessory panel, click on it, then click on the fitting, and just make the adjustment here. You can control the inset, outset, and you can also control the near, far to switch the handle to whichever side you'd like. So here we're going to press OK, and now we've successfully placed the damper in the second way. The third and last way to place a damper inside a fitting is to place the damper inside the fitting from the AutoCAD property box. If you double click on a fitting and then go over to the AutoCAD property box, as we're going to do here, you will notice that under the technology parameters, we have the choices for damper in and damper out. And if you click on damper in, you're going to get a little dialog box. And if you click on that dialog box, PractiCAD is going to open up the same damper window we saw from the item box earlier. And here we can say that we'd like to choose a damper type. So we're going to choose the VD damper type. We're going to choose the orientation and choose the offset. Once again, when you're using this method for placing dampers, you are not going to see the damper appear until after you've already placed it. So you have to hit the OK button and choose all these parameters. So what we're going to do is we're going to say OK. Once you press OK, PractiCAD has added the damper in there. This is the third and final way of both editing and adding dampers into PractiCAD.